everybody. Today we're going to work on a plated dessert. So basically the important part here is the combination of flavors and textures that we put together on the plate. We've talked a little bit about that before in lectures. It's not so much about, in this case, the dessert itself and what we're making. There are a few simple things. We're going to make the crepes. We're going to saute some apples. We've cut them tourne, if you remember that term, the seven-sided football shape. We've made a simple caramel sauce, and we've poached some cranberries in a simple syrup. So no one component is really that complex, which is kind of the point. I have included all of the recipes on Blackboard for you for all these different items, the crepes and the caramel sauce, etc. But it's really about how that plate comes together, how it looks when you plate it up. So the first thing we'll go over, and again we've talked about this before, is the tourne. So we're just going to take a regular apple and we are going to turn it into the seven-sided football shape that we're going to saute in butter. Okay? So it's really not that complex. I like to use a boning knife, some people like to use paring knives. So what we're going to do is simply cut the apple into quarters first. No need to skin or core it, because that's all going to come off in the tourne process anyway. Okay? So now that I have my quarter apple, that's really a perfect size to start with. And I'm just going to come around and kind of angle my knife. See, I'm using it up against my index finger, kind of using my thumb as support. And I'm coming around, fatter in the middle, tapered at the ends. Right? So on the fatter side where the skin was, I got more to take off. On this thin side where the core is, I have much less to take off. So I really want to kind of just skim it and just get enough to get that core out of the apple so that I can have a nice tapered finished product. Okay? And then I just go back and keep turning, thus the term tourne, until I finish it into that nice symmetrical shape. Again, fatter in the middle and tapered at the ends. And the other thing you want to do is count the sides. So can I get 7 fingers on there? Okay, so if we got 6 and 1 extra side, there you go, you got 7. So not as difficult as it might sound. A little bit of practice certainly helps. So that's the tourne. Then we're going to take those, and all I did was dust them with a little sugar, and you can probably see the glistening. Okay, the sugar pulls out the moisture of the apple, which is a good thing. It's also something you do for when you're making apple pie to help pull the moisture out of the apple. So we're going to take these and we're going to go right into a saute pan with some butter. Okay, and we want to get some nice caramelization here. Right, we want some nice brown color and caramelization. The sugar is going to help add to that as well. And I've got some nice browned butter, so I let my butter cook a little bit first. Okay, so I've got just a little hint of browning. Then I'm going to put my apples in there, and I'm going to let them saute nicely. Okay, it doesn't take a really long time. We want them to be a little bit al dente on the inside. We don't want them completely mushy, but we want that nice caramelized color on the outside. So while that's taking place, we can talk about the crepe batter a little bit. Crepe batter is, again, fairly simple. What is a crepe? It's a thin pancake, right? So the batter is pretty similar to a pancake. A little bit thinner in the batter texture, and of course when we pour it in a pan, it's going to be a little bit thinner. Keep those apples moving. We want brown but not black, right? So the crepe batter is simply eggs and egg yolks, milk and water, some melted butter that I've cooled back down, flour. I like to use pastry flour because, again, it's more delicate pancake, but you can use all-purpose. Some pastry flour, some sugar, and some salt. Okay? And then, of course, I'm going to sift that because, again, I'm looking for that nice light texture. So I'm going to sift that, sift my dry ingredients together, right? So that once I add my liquid, I don't have to do very much mixing, because as we should know at this point, gluten development would not be an ideal thing for a crepe. Okay? So once we have that sugar, salt, flour all sifted together, and you can see the texture on that. how light and fluffy it is. Again, yolks and whole eggs go in this simply for the fat content. All of the fat is in the yolk, and we need a little more fat content for our crepe, so we use 2 whole yolks and 2 whole eggs. Okay? And I whisk that up, and then I take my whole milk and water. I can combine those 2 things together and whisk that into my egg mixture. Okay? Again, like I said, pretty simple. Not very many ingredients. We're talking 8 ingredients. Okay? Then I take my flour mixture all at once, especially when we don't want to develop gluten. We don't want to slowly mix that in there. We want to get it done as quickly as possible with as little mixing as possible, and yet still have it smooth. Okay, so I've got my flour, sugar, salt mixture with my egg, milk, and water. And as soon as that's smooth, I have one thing left, and that is my melted butter. All right? And the important thing here is simply that you let it cool back down, all right, before you add it in, or you're going to curdle your batter. Okay, so I melted the butter, let it come back down to room temperature before I add it in, so that it does not cook that in. Okay, and then again, just pour it all in there at once. And what you're left with should be a smooth and liquidy batter. All right? Again, a little bit thicker than a pancake batter. Keep an eye on my nice caramelized apples over here. Pretty much set to go. All right, this also needs to rest. Okay, so once you make the batter, it has to sit for at least an hour. It's actually okay to make it several hours at a time and let it sit in a refrigerator. If it's an hour, you can let it sit at room temperature. So I made a batch already, so I have some more batter already set to go that has rested, and I have some crepes that I've already made. All right, look at the nice golden color. We don't want them too dark. They should be pliable, right, so that they can be rolled or folded. And then when you're going to cook them, you want your pan at a fairly low heat. If you look here, you can see how small that flame is, right? It takes a little time to get that pan at just the right temperature. So I've kept this going as I made my first few. And then I have some clarified butter that you want to put in. Right? We all know clarified butter by now. So we put our clarified butter in, and we don't really want a big sizzle when we put it in there, right? Because again, we want a just lightly golden brown color. We don't want over cooking, over caramelization. So we don't want the batter to set too quick, or else that'll happen. We also don't want the crepe to end up crunchy. It should be nice and smooth, okay? So see how the batter's taking a little bit of time to set up, which is good because that gives me a chance to move it around the bottom of the pan and use my spatula to go around the outside to kind of keep those edges smooth, okay? And the other key here is how little batter I put in. Just enough to coat the bottom of that pan is all I did. Again, not like a pancake. You want your pancakes nice and thick and fluffy. You do not want that with the crepe, okay? So, see the one side is almost done, and it's just starting to turn a little bit lighter yellow, a little paler yellow on the uncooked side. But you notice that it's not sizzling or crackling or anything like that, because if it was, again, I'd end up with too brown of a finished crepe. Okay? And all that butter in there allows me to move it nicely in a non-stick pan. I want to use a nice one that doesn't have any dings or dents in it. There are crepe pans that are specifically just for crepes, and they're really thin and they have short sides, and they're meant only to be used for crepes and never washed, because once you wash it, you break the seal. But most people don't have those, so nice non-stick pan works fine. Okay, give it a quick flip, and it's a nice light brown color. What we want, and yet still pliable. By the way, I am right-handed and I flip left, so I hope you guys noticed that. You didn't know me well. All those stories I told you about how many pans I can flip at once. So once we have it nice and finished, okay, again, we don't want a lot of browning, just a little bit. It's pretty pliable, and you can keep kind of flipping it around if you need to. If you lose an edge, put it back over. Boom, there you go. Okay, so that's just about done. Our apples are nice and brown, right? That's going to give us a deep, dark, rich color. I also made a nice caramel sauce out of apple juice and what's called apple brandy. All right. So again, that recipe I'll put in a PowerPoint for you, but caramel is really simple. Basically, you take sugar, you put it in the pan, you let it melt on its own, stirring it constantly so it can melt. Then you add your liquid, which can be water, or in this case we used apple juice and brandy, and then you let that cook down for about 20 minutes. And then you add some butter to it. That's all. Caramel is fairly simple. You just don't want to overcook it or undercook it. So we have our caramel component, we have our apples, we have our nice finished crepes, right? A little browning, a little bit of browning there. So our crepes are finished. We have our cranberries, that's another component. So you can see all these different components that we're going to put into this dish to make it nice. And all these flavors and textures complement each other. But with these cranberries, all I did was took whole cranberries. If you can get fresh, great. If you can't get fresh, you can buy the frozen whole cranberry. You do want the whole ones and you don't want dry, okay? And what I did here was I cooked them in a simple syrup. All right, and the simple syrup is called simple syrup because it's simply sugar and water. It's been brought to a boil and then let cool back down. Okay, so I dissolved that sugar and water together. I brought it to a boil. I let it come back to a simmer. I added my cranberries. I let those simmer for about 10 minutes, and then I took it all out. The simple syrup with the cranberries, and I let them cool down. Okay. The other thing I did was I infused some cinnamon into that. So I took some nice whole cinnamon sticks that I put into the simple syrup while the cranberries were poaching in there, just to pull that flavor of cinnamon, light hint of cinnamon in that finished cranberry. Okay. And then of course we have some vanilla ice cream to add to this. I'm not going to go over the vanilla ice cream process today, but I will post the recipe for that. Some of you have taken baking and we've already made the ice cream batter, but again, a fairly simple process. And again, the plated dessert is what it's all about. It doesn't have to be a super complex dessert. It can be a combination of some simple things. Even if you have some chocolate ganache, you've got some peanut brittle, you've got a tuile cookie, you know, a really simple cookie that's thin, and you put in some mousse or some fresh berries, right? It doesn't have to be complex to end up with a really nice finished dessert. So we're going to take some of these crepes and we're just going to fold them into nice triangles. Right? So shape is always a good component of what we're doing, right? Put a few crepes, okay? Then we're going to take some cranberries, some of our poached cranberries. We're just going to nestle those around. Nice beautiful color there as well that comes out. Okay. And of course the cranberry has a very tart flavor, but we've poached it in the simple syrup to kind of balance that a little bit. Right? Then we're going to take our beautiful caramelized apples. We're going to put a few of those on there. Ooh, nice and hot. Yeah, nice and hot. And of course, those were cooked in butter and sugar. Okay. And it's the tournée shape that adds to the finished product. Then we have our caramel sauce, our apple and brandy caramel sauce, right? We're going to take some of this. I'm just going to drizzle that around on the apples, on the crepes, right? And a nice scoop of fresh vanilla bean ice cream right as it's going out the door to your table. Okay. And then maybe we'll take a little bit of that simple syrup juice. It's got the nice red color. And kind of just put a little bit of that over the top. And then obviously make sure we have a nice clean plate all the way around. you want a little extra caramel sauce because you really like caramel, great. We can do a little bit of that too, right over the ice cream. So look at that. Apple crepe, poached cranberry, vanilla ice cream, beautiful plate, set to go. Make sure you check out the recipes on Blackboard, and we'll see you next time.